Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm here today to do my best books of 2022. So unlike the previous video, I'm just drinking water today. I am not going to be snarky. These are genuinely the books that I read in 2022 and I had the utmost best time with them. I just realized that I forgot to collect them. So I'm gonna go do that now. All right, now that I have them all in order here, let's actually get started. So we are going to go from number 13 on the list all the way to number 1. Random number, but these were genuinely the books that I felt like had the most impact on me in 2022 for a variety of different reasons. Some of them are purely just for entertainment, some of them are for memories. We have a wide collection here. So we'll get started with number 13, which I think is pretty obvious. We have the Percy Jackson series. I wanted to put all of them on this list because I just had a wonderful time reading them with my friend Honani for our Percy Jackson along. If you participated in it, I want to thank you so much. You provided so many memories for me and Honani, for just our time on YouTube, for every video that I created. It really had a special place in my heart. And I really fell in love with the Percy Jackson series this year. I'll just pull out the first one just so I have something lighter to hold. Basically, if you don't know what the Percy Jackson series, it follows a young boy named Percy Jackson who discovers that he is half a regular human being and half a god, thus making him a demigod, making him the son of Poseidon. Through discovering that, Percy heads to Camp Half-Blood, where he is kind of tasked with multiple quests and journeys that all accumulate to him basically saving the world. My relationship with the Percy Jackson series is that I basically started it this year. I didn't grow up with the series, so needless to say, I was a little apprehensive to pick it up, but that is purely just because I didn't know what to expect when going in. I knew a lot of people liked this series, but I wasn't sure if that was just a nostalgia factor or because this series was genuinely good. Here to say, number 13, it was actually a really great series. I think this also factors as one of my favorite books because it was also super surprising to me that I ended up giving a majority of this series 5 stars. Like I said going in, I wasn't sure if people enjoyed this series basically on nostalgia. However, I definitely think that this series in general overall holds up. There are some missteps here and there, but I think overall in almost 20 years, I think you could still read this today and get the same enjoyment out of it. I had so much fun reading this series. I honestly laughed out loud at specific moments in the series. And I think Riordan did an excellent job with blending Greek mythos with the Western world. I think it was really well done throughout the series. The characters were absolutely amazing. I fell in love with Percy, Clover, even Annabeth. Percy is such a great main character and I love the integration of ADHD representation and dyslexic representation. I think it's super well done. I think it makes sense for the Percy Jackson world and I really appreciate Rick Riordan for creating characters that people can cling to and people can relate to. I loved learning about the camp. I loved learning how it fit into the world and how the mythos related to the characters. It was all done super well and super fun. And overall, it was just a really charming experience. I can't say anything else but that I became obsessed with Rick Riordan. I want to read everything that he's ever written. And that's why this is definitely on the 13th spot. It really captured me this year and I'm really happy that I picked it up. In the 12th spot, we have this behemoth, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. If you watched my best books of 2021, the first book in the series, The Way of Kings, made that list as well. Brandon Sanderson is just doing epic and monumental things with the series and it's definitely one of my goals this year to continue with it. The Stormlight Archive is kind of difficult to summarize in a way because it's so big. Like just in 2 books, we are already at 2,000 pages. This series follows a world where the life of humans on this planet is kind of plagued with these storms that release energy into the world. There's a variety of characters that are dealing with assassinations and political plots. Some of them are learning about the Knight's Radiance and some of them are getting entangled with different sprens. If you haven't read the series, a lot of those words are gonna fly right over your head, but trust me when I say that even though it has a very complex magic system, it's well worth the read. This is the second book in the series, so I can't say much else than absolute praise. Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite authors. I think the Stormlight Archive is probably one of his best works. I think a lot of what Brandon Sanderson does well, like his magic systems, his characters, all conglomerate into a really well-rounded series. His books are incredibly long, but when you finish the Stormlight Archive books, and especially Words of Radiance, which is what I'm talking about now, you might go into it being like, I don't really understand what's happening. However, when you get to the end, Brandon Sanderson ties everything that he's introduced to you in a neat bow. He opens up enough doors where you're able to see like what the future books will hold. But there's also a lot of things that might go right over your head. You don't even know that he's opening these different doors. It's incredible to read. It's just an experience. I honestly have to say, if you're scared of these behemoths, I would pick them up anyways, no matter how long it takes you to read. It's well worth it. I absolutely love this. Brandon Sanderson does it again, constantly raising the bar for us all and doing it flawlessly. In the number 11 spot, we have a finale to an epic series by R.F. Kuang. This is The Burning God, the third book in the Poppy War trilogy, and another perfection. Absolute perfection. Same thing with last year. I had the Dragon Republic on my best books of the year. It was no surprise that this one also fell into my best books of 2022. The Poppy War trilogy follows a young girl named Rin who kind of wants to escape her farm life town because she doesn't see anything coming out of her staying there and living there. So she really works hard to study and get into this epic academy in order to train for the army. What ends up happening is that while they are at school, a war breaks out and the children are then thrusted into this war when some of them are really unprepared. At the same time, Rin is discovering that she has these shaman abilities, and obviously the story takes off from there. As this is the finale of a series, I don't want to get too into it, but I knew that I was going to love this. I gave the first 2 books 5 stars, so there wasn't even a doubt in my mind that Miss R.F. Kuang was going to let me down with this book. Overall, this is a really impactful and meaningful trilogy to read. It's definitely very difficult. I would look into trigger warnings if you need them, but this ending was just so great. I loved the characters that we followed throughout this series, Rin, Kite, and Neza. And even though I would describe this book, this finale, as more plot driven than the other books, the journey that our main characters take over the course of the series and over the course of this book was just amazing to read. They did not all of a sudden become better people. They just became more grandiose versions of themselves due to the situations that they are placed in. The themes of cyclical nature in history, colonialism, and religion was just as excellently discussed in this one as it was in the rest of the trilogy. I think that this is a trilogy that absolutely needs to be explored by all readers. It's fantastic. R.F. Kuang is an amazing author. Nothing she does can ever disappoint me. Love this. I feel like I want to reread it because it was so good. Highly recommend this series and highly recommend this as one of the best finales that I have ever read. Speaking of amazing finales, we also have Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee on this list. I also read Jade War this year, so I would definitely include that because I also gave it 5 stars, but just for the purpose of holding up a book, I have the finale here. Jade City, which is the first book in the series, also made my best books of 2021. There's a theme here. When I love an author, they usually all get the same rating. The Greenbolt Saga basically follows the No Peak clan, who are a family that are basically in charge of jade, which is this coveted substance on the island of Kekon, and essentially gives the people or the wearers of this jade superhuman capabilities. This is the finale, so obviously a lot of things have happened in the trilogy, but I think what I said for Jade City in my last video and what I said for the series overall this year is just that it absolutely captured my heart. I love the theme of family in this series. I love the theme of growing into one's place within a family. Obviously, the discussions of colonialism are very prevalent in this novel and how other countries are trying to involve themselves in Kekon politics. The family is one of the best families I've ever read from, especially in this final book, because we are, I believe, 20 years since the first book within this. So the family has definitely grown, and there's a lot of things that happen in this book. I really, really, really love every character in this series, specifically Hilo. I am a Hilo simp, but I just think Fonda Lee did an excellent job with the plot. I think you never know what's coming. Fonda Lee takes no holds back. She will absolutely shock you if she needs to. She writes excellent characters who have a lot of depth, are sometimes really horrible people and sometimes the best people alive, and you're kind of conflicted with the way that you feel about them. But I absolutely love this series. I would highly, highly, highly recommend. Another great, 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 excellent, fantastic finale to a series that I absolutely recommend. The window is really bothering me because I'm just worried that I'm gonna see like a face, so I'm just gonna lower it. After that, we have a non-fiction book that I think is going to make a lot of people's best of this year, and that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. This is the memoir from Jeanette herself. She narrates the audiobook as well, which I listened to, but it basically follows her life from before she became a child actor and how she got into it, a bunch of stuff that happened in her life until her mother passes away. And this was just an incredible book to read, an incredible audiobook to listen to, and having it narrated by McCurdy herself was a very influential experience, and I would highly recommend to do so if you can. I do think Jeanette McCurdy's writing takes a little bit of time to get into, especially for those who are really used to standard memoirs with a lot of details. I think the writing in this book is extremely simple and removed, but I think that that added so much to McCurdy's story. It definitely read like she's speaking from a moment in her childhood, and I think that that just made the book way more impactful. I devoured this from front to back. I read it all in one day because I absolutely could not put this down. She deserves every glowing review she's gotten, and she also mentions that she wants to write fiction. I will definitely pick it up. I'm excited to see what the future holds for Jeanette McCurdy. I definitely think this is an amazing starting point. And if you are at all interested in Jeanette McCurdy, I would pick this up. And I think that if you've heard of her or you're not really sure if you would enjoy it, I still think it's a really excellent memoir. There are a lot of trigger warnings, obviously, for parental death, parental abuse, eating disorders, a lot of stuff like that. So I would definitely look into it before diving in because she is very honest about her experience. However, I think that added soul to the book, and I just absolutely love this. I would highly recommend it. I think it's a fantastic read, and that's why it definitely deserved to be on my best of 2022. In the 8th spot, we have a book that not really took me by surprise because I did expect to love it, but I didn't expect to love it this much, and that is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. The reason I'm saying this is because a book about cannibalism is making my top books of the year, and not only my top books of the year, but like within my top 10. This basically follows a food critic named Dorothy Daniels, and Dorothy is a food critic who absolutely loves what she does. She loves to be meticulous, she loves to eat. However, there's something about Dorothy that makes her a little different from other food critics, and while she's suppressed it long enough, in this book, Dorothy explores cannibalism. If you want to read an absolutely unhinged novel with an absolutely unhinged main character and an author who does not care about what you think, I would really recommend this book. I don't support cannibalism, but I do support unhinged women. And I think that this book is extremely captivating. I think it does pull you in within the first chapter. We are really exploring the psyche of Dorothy, and I think if you enjoy books like that, you will really, really, really like this one. It blew my mind. Overall, this had a really engaging plot. It had really beautiful writing. I am overall completely impressed with this novel. I can't wait to see what Chelsea G. Summers publishes next, but if it is about an unhinged woman, you know damn well that I'll be picking that up. In the 7th spot, we have a book that completely took me away this year, and that is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. Listen, after one book, it solidified Olivia Blake as one of my favorite authors. I can't wait to pick up more from her. The Atlas 6 is about a group of 6 students in a way that are picked by this mysterious man named Atlas, who chooses them to kind of compete in order to work for the Library of Alexandria. However, the catch is that only 5 of them can realistically work for the library, and therefore one of them needs to be eliminated. I have the 2nd book in the series on my January TBR. I literally can't wait to pick it up. I have just like other pressing reads to read first, and then that one's coming ASAP. As soon as I read the first 5 pages of this book, I knew that this was definitely going to be a favorite read. Very much so a favorite read of 2022, but I honestly think that if the rest of the series goes well, this could be a favorite series of all time. I have nothing much to say about this book because I do genuinely think that this was absolute perfection. I don't understand any complaints about this book. I don't understand negative reviews. I thought that this was peak excellence. This novel is really about characters, so I can see why that might not be appealing to a lot of people, but the characters are really, really, really interesting and they all have a lot of depth to them. They're really, really different and I just appreciated this exploration of them. Every character has their own personality. They are easily distinguishable and amazing in their own ways. I just really enjoyed this. I think Olivia Blake has the most romantic and beautiful writing I have ever seen. I tabbed this up with different quotes that I was enjoying, things that made me laugh, things that made me happy. I was just obsessed with this book. I absolutely adored it. I'm not kidding when I say I immediately pre-ordered almost everything Olivia Blake is publishing this year. I can't wait to pick up more from her. Her writing completely solidified me, engaged me, engrossed me into reading more from her. Highly recommend the Atlas 6. It was just fantastic. In 6th place, we have another book that completely fucking surprised me this year. Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. This was amazing and I have not stopped thinking about this since I read it. Good Omens is basically a book that follows the lead up to the apocalypse. In this book, the Antichrist seems to have been lost and they can't find him, so an angel and a demon team up together to find the Antichrist before the end of the world occurs next Saturday. I just think the premise for this book is so cute, but I did want to pick it up because the love I have for David Tennant is unmatched. I love that man so much. And I've always wanted to watch Good Omens, but I was like, I need to read the book first. So I picked it up this year and this book was so fucking good. I love this so much. I had never read from Terry Pratchett before, but I had heard that he was a really humorous writer. I have read from Neil Gaiman and you can definitely see where both of their humors come in. It was just such a funny book. Orange tabs are moments that make me laugh and I have so many of them because honestly I was cackling my way through this book. The themes in this book, the humor, the love for humanity was just seeping off the pages. Gaiman, like I mentioned, is a writer I already read from before. He's a writer that I already really enjoy, but if this is what I'm missing from Terry Pratchett, I need to pick up a book from him soon. I do want to point out, however, that there are some terms used in this book that are very much of its time. So when I'm talking about humor, I'm not necessarily poking at those parts, but really the parts that are just generally funny. This book gave so much to me and to other readers. I sped through it. I would definitely read it again. I would definitely listen to it on audio again. Look at them. I just love this. I do really think that this is a fun and quick read. Highly recommend it. It's really an excellent look on themes of religion and the search for the good in humanity. Loved it. Highly recommend. In the 5th spot, we have the book that took over 2020, Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Another perfect book. This book follows an orc named Viv who is tired of the swashbuckling warrior life and she wants to settle down and open up a coffee shop within a town that has never heard of coffee before. Through trials and tribulations and hiring a succubus and a little rat to cook and help her around the shop, Viv is able to bring a cup of warmth to this relatively unknown and small town. I did not know what to expect when going into this book, just that everybody was absolutely adoring it and my friend Ness was like, let's buddy read. So I was like, you know what? Sure. Everybody's been loving this book. I want to know what the fuss is about. I want to know why everybody's getting into cozy fantasy. When we buddy read this together, what I found was an absolute joy of a book. This is the utmost happiest book I have read all year. I literally haven't stopped thinking about it. I just want to find a book that brings me happiness like this again. Everything about this story was just simply fun. And every time I picked up this book to read the pages for our buddy read, I just had a smile on my face. Her relationships with the people who help her start her cafe were just sweet and wonderful. And don't get me started on my little chef Thimble. So cute. Despite the fact that this is just absolutely a warm hug in a book, this novel also appealed to the many things about epic fantasy that I love. I love groups of characters who come together seemingly not knowing one another and becoming a family. They make something a home. That is usually what I love in books. I just love friendships and people coming together despite the hardships of what's going on around them. And even though there wasn't a lot of hardship in this book, I think it's really nailing, like putting a nail in the coffin of things I appreciate of the genre. I had nothing negative to say once I finished this book. I'm eagerly awaiting Travis Baldry's next book. I can't wait to read anything that he publishes next. And slice of life fantasies need to be in our hands more often because honestly, we need this. It made me laugh. It made me smile. It gave me a hug. Love this. We need more of it. Please. Thank you. Go read this book. In the fourth spot, we have a book that made me cry so much. All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. I talked about this book quite a bit in the first half of the year when I had read an arc of it. To that point, it had been the only book that made me cry, because it's devastating. All My Rage basically follows two timelines. One timeline is following a woman named Misbah who is growing up in Lahore, Pakistan, and she is newly married to her husband. After their young life is shaken by tragedy, they move to the United States to follow Misbah's dream and open up a motel in the hopes of a new start. The second timeline follows her son named Sal, who is growing up in Juniper, California with his best friend named Noor. After Sal loses his mother and his father has fallen to alcoholism, Sal is really struggling to keep the motel afloat for his mom. When Sal's attempts to save the motel are spiraling out of control, Nora must ask herself what her friendship with Sal is worth and what it will take to defeat the monsters in their path. I have no words to really describe how amazing this book was. Like I mentioned, I absolutely sobbed at the end of the book. I have read from Tahir before, but this was her first dive into contemporary writing, and if this is what it'll be a lot of pain, but I know I will enjoy it. This novel is one of my favorite writing techniques, which is multi-generational stories. And I think Tahir really did this in a profound and moving way. The stories for all three of our main characters were really heartbreaking, even though the beginning portion of the novel is really quiet. Like there are things that are hinted at, but the majority of their consequences happen at the end. Although I am not Pakistani myself, so I cannot speak fully to the representation, I can speak to the representation surrounding immigrant communities and the struggles of living in a new country, being a second generation immigrant in a country, and that absolutely struck a chord with me. The book does an amazing job at tackling these subjects while also demonstrating forgiveness and acceptance of consequences. I really enjoyed Tahir's fantasy novels, but this is one release that I would highly recommend reading. It is really sad, so I can understand the criticisms of this, but I really enjoyed it. I really think it is an impactful and important book. And so if you're looking for a 2022 book to read, I would highly recommend this one. In the third spot, we have a book I read for my birthday back in January of 2022, and that is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I know that not everybody likes V.E. Schwab, but she is one of my favorite writers. And while Gallant may be not her best work, it was definitely still a 5 stars for me and definitely still a book I thought about for the entire year. This book follows a young orphan named Olivia Pryor who receives a mysterious letter one day asking her to return to her family home of Gallant. However, before her mother passed away, her one rule and the one thing that she told Olivia, even in her journals, is to never return to Gallant. Olivia is searching for a home, searching for a family, and despite knowing not to, she decides to return to Gallant and give in to her curiosities. I would definitely take this recommendation, I guess, with a grain of salt because I absolutely love V. Schwab. Like I said, I love everything she's ever written. I'm definitely biased in this recommendation, but I genuinely think that this is just a fun and beautiful story. I finished this all in one day because I was really captivated by the writing, captivated by the plot. It's quite a simple tale, that's for sure. It's just a spooky and mysterious novel that follows a young girl returning home and finding a home for the first time. This definitely has Schwab's go-to writing style, very atmospheric, definitely pulling you into a world. The atmosphere throughout the entire novel was immaculate and kept me flying through the pages because I just could not put this down. I love gothic mansions, I love secret gardens, I love mysterious families, and if you like all of those things too, I think you will really enjoy this book.
Many minutes later.
So if the angle or anything changed, it's because my phone died. So we're just gonna continue. We were basically talking about Gallant. I was at the end of what I was talking about. If you like atmospheric reads, pick it up. That's it. One of my favorite books of the year. After that, my penultimate book of the year, my second favorite, that is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. Absolute perfection. I love this book. Another book that absolutely destroyed me this year. The book follows two friends who rekindle their friendship after seeing each other in a subway station. Sam and Sadie met in the hospital playroom and became friends due to their shared love of video games. When they rekindle their friendship in the future, they decide to create a video game and start an entire company. And the story looks at their relationship. It looks at the creation of video games. It was just amazing. I read this as an arc this year, and I was definitely putting it off because I had heard such praise for the book, and I was really scared that I was going to be one of those people that didn't enjoy it. However, I'm sitting here today, I'm sitting in front of you all to say that I actually feel like this novel was made for me. This novel is very much about the love of video games, but also the love that comes from creating and designing them. If you don't know this about me, I do work in the video game industry, and it is something that I'm very passionate about. I like to read about it, and this book really just hit that soft spot for me, hit that joy, and definitely kept me interested in the novel from beginning to end. It really touches upon idea to creation, and it was just something that I really enjoyed. Sam, Sadie, and their friend Marks are truly meaningful characters to me and definitely held the story, making readers really care about every single thing that happens to them. I cried reading this multiple times because I felt so much for them. Sadie, as a woman working in video games, I related to her so much. I also really enjoyed the different writing techniques that Zevin includes in the novel. Some of the chapters are in regular first person, third person. Some of the chapters are written in second person. Some of the chapters are written as if the characters are playing a video game. It just felt so unique, so different, and so fresh. I don't think there was any way for me to read this book and not enjoy it, but I highly recommend it. It almost made my top book of the year until I read the next one, but this was so enjoyable. I loved it so much. I highly recommend it. I think the writing is beautiful. I think it's just a really great novel. And if you don't like it, never tell me, okay? And then finally, our last book of the video, my favorite book of the year. Would it be anything else besides Babel by R.F. Kuang? I don't think so. We've seen R.F. Kuang on this list before. We know that she's a bad bitch. I love this book. It follows a young man named Robin Swift in 1828 who is taken from his home by a professor at Oxford in order to work for the Oxford's Royal Institute of Translation. Due to the magic system in this world, the institute powers things, creates things using translation, and the stronger a translation is, like that between English and Chinese, which is where Robin comes in, the stronger that power would be. But obviously the novel tackles many things, and I didn't really write a proper review for this because I just feel like if you didn't give this 5 stars, you're wrong, and I don't make the rules. R.F. Kuang is the only bad bitch that's appeared twice in my lists. The book is riddled with themes of colonialism, how the British Empire invaded countries and took over countries, how Robin feels misplaced in both the countries that he comes from. There's just literally so much I could talk about. I will link my Thrillathon vlog because I did read Babel in it, and I go more into depth about each individual topic and each individual theme and characters and the things that I appreciated the most about this book. I just want to end this video by saying that this is the best book that I read this year because R.F. Kuang is a fantastic writer. Her themes are always really well integrated into her books. Her writing is always extremely engaging, extremely thrilling. Her plots, again, super engaging, super thrilling. Her characters are easily relatable. I think there's always a character in these books for someone to relate to and cling on to. Just everything about this book is masterful. I obviously tabbed it so much. It is definitely the most well-crafted novels of the year. I think that if you're interested in dark academia, if you're interested in fantasy, but you want to read something that tackles the white supremacy and colonialism that is often very present in dark academia books, this is the book for you. Loved it from front to back. Could never put it down. It was so engaging, so fascinating. I can come up with a million more adjectives to describe how great this book was, but I think you just really need to read it for yourself. All of these books in my top 13 of the year were amazing, but Babel is definitely one that I think people need to read, and I will shout it from the rooftops till the day I die. I love Rebecca Kuang. I will read anything this woman puts out in the future. I'm so highly anticipating all of her upcoming releases. This was a masterclass in writing. Loved it. Highly recommend. Please read this book. It was perfect. And that's it. Those were all of the books that I absolutely loved this year. Please let me know what your number one favorite book of the year was. And if it wasn't Babel, please explain why. But if you would like to follow me on any of my other social medias, I do leave a link down below to my Twitter, Goodreads, and Instagram if you would like to follow me there. And of course, because it is the end of the video, please do not forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. I tell you every time, but it does wonders for my channel and it makes me feel really good. And that's it. I don't know how to end these things. Please read Babel if you haven't. Okay, bye.